Welcome to the Stronger Than Steel podcast with your host, Austin Davidson and John Keir, talking Steelers all the time. Now, here's Austin and John.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Stronger Than Steel podcast. I am Austin Davidson, your host for today. I am actually alone today because this is the mock draft episode, and me and John decided it'd probably be easier to do our mock draft separate as we wanted to account for trades and all of that. So I'm going to do my Steelers mock draft, all 7 picks that the Steelers have, and then I'm also going to go through the first round of the NFL draft and what I think is going to happen. And like most mock drafts, I'm probably going to be wrong. You could yell at me in the comment section below about how bad my picks are, but here it goes. I'm going to start with the Steelers one first. And in round 1 at pick 28, I think the Steelers address their most pressing need here and get Alabama inside linebacker Rashaan Evans. I think their main target would have been Leighton Vander Esch, but unfortunately I think he's off the board at this time, so they go for the next best guy at the position. And from then, at round 2, pick 60, this pick was very hard for me, as I had some bias and really wanted the Steelers to take Armani Watts here. And ultimately, I let my love for Watts take over, and the Steelers end up taking him here. All he has to do is become stronger, and I think he could be one of the best safeties in this draft, so I'm mocking him to the Steelers. So that's 2 defensive players in the first 2 rounds. Third round, I stick with the defensive player. Despite considering receiver, I think the Steelers go edge here, and surprisingly still on the board is Shaquem Griffin. I think the Steelers weigh the risk on this and are surprised he's even still on the board and have to take him as he has shown some outstanding speed at the position and could really help them on the edge. So the Steelers don't have a pick in round 4, but fast forward to round 5, pick 148. And surprise, the Steelers aren't done getting edge and defense, though. They see a guy that John really liked in Dorance Armstrong, and the Steelers feel the same way, seeing a sleeper with great pass rushing skills and can play the run. So they snag him and get an edge rusher in back-to-back picks. Later in round 5 is pick 165, and they choose to stay defense. That's 5 straight rounds of defense. That's unheard of. So make fun of me in the comments, like I said. This is where it gets interesting, and the Steelers could really go anywhere, but I think they decided to bring in a DT to bring in competition for Daniel McCullers. They brought him in for a private workout as a guy I looked at, and that's Bilal Nichols out of Delaware. He's a project player, but still compete with Big Dan for a spot, as we both thought that Dan was going to be cut already. So with Nichols' natural talent and athletic ability, he's a shot at making the roster. So Steelers don't have a round 6 pick, so we're fast forwarding to round 7, 220, which is the pick we got from the Giants. And coming from our most recent episode is Jordan Mailata. And honestly, he may be my favorite prospect I've looked at. He has so much upside as a 7th round pick that I think that I want Mike Munchak to work with him, because at 6'8" and 350 pounds, he can be turned into an unstoppable beast on the offensive line. Plus, if the Steelers want, they could use him as a fullback on the 1-yard line, even though I don't think the Steelers would use him since we have Roosevelt Nix, but it's an option nonetheless. So round 7, pick 246, we're approaching the end of the draft. There's not many more picks left. The Steelers finish the draft with one of their own, Quadri Henderson out of Pittsburgh. He offers a chance to make the roster even as a 7th round pick just because of return abilities. As a receiver and offensive player, I don't expect much, but I think the Steelers take the chance on him as being one of Pittsburgh's best returners out of college. So it's not a guarantee he makes the roster, but it's a good chance to take nonetheless. So to recap, the first pick for the Steelers was Rashaan Evans, an inside linebacker from Alabama. He was looked at by John. The second pick was Armani Watts, a safety out of Texas A&M, and that was looked at by me. Third pick is Shaquem Griffin, an edge from UCF, and that was looked at by me as well. The fourth pick is Dorance Armstrong, an edge from Kansas, and John looked at him. The fifth pick is Bilal Nichols, the offensive tackle out of Delaware. I looked at him. The sixth pick was Jordan Mailata, offensive tackle. He's not coming out of school, and I looked at him. And then the 7th pick was Quadri Henderson, a wide receiver out of Pittsburgh, and I also looked at him. So that wraps up the Steelers draft for me. Please, again, tell me in the comments what you think I got wrong and what the Steelers will take and who they will take. And tell me your mock draft for them. But now we're going to move on to the NFL mock draft. And this one I found to be much more difficult. With the Steelers one, I went with my gut. This one I felt like I did a lot more research for. I mean, I did a lot of research through the season, obviously thinking of what the Steelers wanted and such. But I had to do a lot more research at one time because I had to decide what every single team needed, who was on the board, and I had to decide who was the biggest value pick and all that, and maybe even surprise picks. So, starting out with pick 1, the Cleveland Browns. Knowing that the quarterback is the most important position, the Browns take Sam Darnold out of USC, despite reports of them wanting Josh Allen. I think that was the pick to go. I think that the reports that they want Josh Allen are bogus. But moving along, New York Giants are next, and Giants have a hard choice. Do they take the successor to Eli Manning? Do they commit to him and actually get him a running back? Or do they affix their atrocious line? And ultimately, the Giants pick Josh Rosen out of UCLA, but they heavily consider Saquon Barkley. Moving on to the Jets. This is a quick hitter for me. The Jets are very interested in Baker Mayfield, and that's just who they take. Hopefully the guy out of Oklahoma was worth it for all those picks given up to move up to the Colts pick. Next up is the Cleveland Browns from the Texans. Surprise pick, as a lot of mock drafts have Saquon Barkley ending up with the Browns, but Browns actually choose Bradley Chubb, the defensive end out of North Carolina State, to complement Myles Garrett on the other side, leaving Saquon Barkley on the board, knowing they have Carlos Hyde and Duke Johnson in their backfield. So, that leaves the Denver Broncos. And I sincerely think the Broncos think about trading back here, getting offers from the Cardinals and Patriots, but ultimately I believe they stay here and grab Quentin Nelson out of Notre Dame. I think the Broncos have faith in Case Keenum, at least for the season, and now they got to protect him, and Nelson's going to be great right from the get-go. After cutting Anderson, I believe they consider Barkley as well, but they decide to let Devontae Booker hold it down for now. Next up, we have the Colts, which this pick came from the Jets, and the Colts are ecstatic to end up choosing Barkley, a guy that we're sure they would be gone by pick 4. They still need edge help, but they decide to wait until the second round to address that position by opting to have both Barkley and Marlon Mack in their backfield. So, next up is Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay needs corners really bad. Their defense is one of the worst in the NFL, so they try to fix it by bringing in Denzel Ward from Ohio State, who will be an immediate starter for them on the other side of Vernon Hargreaves. So after the Buccaneers comes the Chicago Bears. And after last year's embarrassing draft folly, the Bears stick their ground and stay where they are and decide they need a linebacker. The question is to go outside or inside. They end up deciding on Roquan Smith, as he could play outside or inside, and they will decide which later. After that is the 49ers. 49ers not being very interested in Jared Alexander and wanting to take a cornerback in the first round. After Denzel Ward is gone, they kind of abandoned that and elect to take Tremaine Edmonds out of Virginia Tech instead to try and get him to play whatever kind of linebacker they please. After the 49ers comes the Raiders, and the Raiders are disappointed they lost a coin toss, and that's the only reason they didn't get Tremaine Edmonds. They end up taking Minkah Fitzpatrick, who they're still happy about, and as he can play safety as well as corner if necessary. So Miami Dolphins are next, and it's simple as this. Dolphins need D-line very badly. They also need tight end, but there's no good ones in this draft this high up. So they end up taking Vita Vea, the defensive tackle out of Washington. After them comes the Buffalo Bills, and this pick came from the Bengals, and the Bills really need a quarterback. And after they're unable to get a trade partner to get up, they end up taking Josh Allen from Wyoming when they were really interested in Baker Mayfield. So after them comes the Washington Redskins. The Washington Redskins choose to bolster their defensive line by adding Daron Payne, the defensive tackle out of Alabama, who could help with their run-stopping issue that they seem to be struggling with. Following the Redskins is the Packers. The Packers are ecstatic because somehow Derwin James fell to them almost unnoticed, so they take him real quick with no questions asked, needing the help. Arizona Cardinals come next, and Cardinals really want to trade back because they know they need a cornerback, but right now their choices are either Lamar Jackson or Mason Rudolph, who they think they could get later. So while they don't get to trade back, they decide getting a receiver for whatever quarterback they do take is necessary, and decide Calvin Ridley from Alabama is the way to go. So the Ravens are next, and having Willie Snead, Michael Crabtree, and now seeing that Calvin Ridley is off the board, Ravens move on from wide receiver and decide they want an edge rusher. So they pick up Harold Landry out of Boston College and call it a day. After the Ravens comes the LA Chargers, and this was the hardest choice for me yet, as I really didn't know where to go with this one. I wanted to go tackle, but I thought it was too early for the tackles that are in this year's draft. But I ultimately decided that they take Taven Bryan, the defensive tackle out of Florida, who a lot of analysts seem to be forgetting about. He had high production out of Florida, and he seems to not be getting that much respect. Anyhow, Seattle Seahawks come next, and part of me thinks that the Seahawks will never change. They won't ever try to protect Russell Wilson. And you know what? it does continue as they pick the cornerback Josh Jackson out of Iowa instead of picking offensive line for Russell Wilson. After the Seahawks comes the Cowboys, and the Cowboys need a receiver so badly. It's really, really bad. They decided to take Cortland Sutton out of SMU, a pick made out of desperation because he probably shouldn't be going this high, but the Cowboys just need wide receivers so bad that they can't wait. Following them is Detroit Lions. Lions need some help on the defensive line, and therefore I think they take Marcus Davenport out of Texas San Antonio, who will help them help them with the pass rush abilities. After that comes the Bengals, and this pick is from Bills. The Bengals O-line absolutely sucked to them this past year, and I think they choose to take Isaiah Wynn to complement new tackle Cordy Glenn, the guard from Georgia, to try and help their cause. Following this pick is the Bills, and this pick comes from the Chiefs. Bills need help on O-line and wide receiver, and decide the best way to help their new quarterback is to protect him, and ended up drafting Will Hernandez, the guard out of Texas El Paso, to help. Patriots come next, and this pick is from the Rams, and I think the Patriots help keep Brady healthy and pick up the first offensive tackle in this draft in Mike Glitchney, the tackle out of Notre Dame. I think it's a good pick for them. I think a lot of people have them taking a linebacker, but I think they need a tackle more. Next up is the Carolina Panthers. Panthers really need help at wide receiver and cornerback, but they aren't really liking what they're seeing as far as cornerbacks go. The best cornerback and wide receiver available aren't that great, so they end up taking a safety instead in Justin Reed, an improvement for them and more value out of the pick. Following them is Tennessee Titans. Titans need an edge so bad, and you know who's still there? Leighton Vander Esch. Despite recent reports of a neck injury, they don't care and take him anyway, as they need someone who could pressure the quarterback, and as an inside linebacker, he's shown that he can really rush the quarterback. So they don't exactly get edged, but they still get a guy who could pass rush. Next up is Atlanta Falcons. With Dontari Poe leaving to the Panthers, the Falcons need to fill the middle of their defensive line. They're now taking Michigan's Maurice Hurst to fill up that hole. Good pick for them and to replace a big hole left in free agency. Following that is the New Orleans Saints. I really wanted to mock the Saints a wide receiver, but I couldn't. A lot of the other receivers really aren't first-round worthy. However, they really need a tight end bad as well. So they end up taking Hayden Hurst, the 25-year-old out of South Carolina. Next up is Pittsburgh Steelers, and as you know, I had them taking Rashaan Evans, so I'm keeping that true, obviously. So after that comes the Jacksonville Jaguars, and Jaguars need another wide receiver, without a doubt, and ended up picking Christian Kirk out of Texas A&M to help that need. Following the Jaguars is Minnesota Vikings. I think the Vikings take Alexander to add more cornerback depth to their team and really solidify their defense, despite needing help at O-line more. The 31st pick is the New England Patriots, so this is really an odd pick, but I don't think like the Patriots running back group at all. I think they need a real leader in their rotation, so I think they pick up Darius Geis to give them a real running back one in their 3-back running back rotation. Following that is the Philadelphia Eagles, the Super Bowl winners, and the Eagles also need a running back with Jay Ajayi only looking decent, so I think they take Sonny Michael out of Georgia to the first round. I'm sorry. The Eagles also need a running back with Jay Ajayi only looking decent, so I think they take Sonny Michael out of Georgia. And that's how they end the first round, to complement their Jay Ajayi with another running back. So that was my draft. Again, you could make fun of me for my picks, tell them they're bad, tell me a guy is never going to be there, tell me a guy I told him he was going to be there too early, so on and so forth. Just tell me in the comments what I messed up. But that's it for today, ladies and gentlemen. This has been a pretty fun episode. This is my favorite episode from last season. I did it by myself. Last year, John didn't get to help me with it. But I think this is going to be everyone's favorite episode. It was at least mine. I think you'll like John's too. John had a pretty nice one. But, subscribe to us on YouTube. Check us out on social media. I'll leave the description in below. And everybody, have a good night.
You have been listening to Stronger Than Steel podcast. Thank you for joining us today, and don't forget to check out our website listed in the description below.